So I know you mentioned prior to jumping into security in this boot camp that you were in sales. How much did that kind of help, with the offensive security role and kind of understanding user behavior? I feel like something I've learned like with the channel is because you're focusing on user behavior and trying to create content geared towards them. So there's a lot of understanding humans, which as an introvert, it's like, ew, yuck, right?
Ew.
So and then like as a pen tester, you're exploiting user behavior, right? Or trying to get people to do something, to click on something, right? And then how did sales kind of feed into that?
So the overall ability to communicate is huge. So we have plenty of people in this community that are like savants with being able to hack and being able to get in. But like if you can't communicate what you've done or how you do it or work in a team, you're not going to be a great asset. I know plenty of amazing hackers who may never work for a firm or may never work as a full-time pen tester because they're just too shy and too closed down. So a lot of people are ignoring what they call like soft skills that are not soft skills. They're like the most important skills you can have. And I leveraged mine. So I know how to talk to customers, which is good for scoping, right? I know how to communicate why these things are important. I know why and how to communicate what we're thinking to people that are not tech savvy. And that's my ability to translate what a DDoS attack is to somebody who doesn't understand how to turn their computer on and is an executive and understands money is where my value really lies, which I think is what they brought me on, because they see, you can teach technical skills. You cannot teach somebody how to communicate without a lot of practice. So I think that that's deeply, deeply important. And as a salesperson, you can take two different perspectives. You can take like I'm the sleazy salesperson trying to get numbers, or you can take the I'm trying to sell you what you need. And for me, every sales job I ever got was because when I interviewed, I said, I only sell with integrity. And then I would have integrity and make them money, and they'd be like, well, make us more. And I'm like, but not at the expense of integrity. So it's for me, it definitely has translated over. I think it's made me a better person in the industry because I can talk like the way that we are talking right now.
That's awesome. I feel like that would definitely help with kind of in a way report writing because surely the consumers of the report are probably more technical people or technically geared individuals, but maybe it could be like like a CFO at a company, like at a smaller firm, and they, were able to contract you guys. Like, how is that? I'm sure that probably has helped with report writing and just kind of writing in like in human language, and
Yeah.
not in nerd speak, right?
Yeah, it definitely has. And I'd say my experience with the report writing is it's somebody who's technical but not tech savvy necessarily. Like they understand the concepts and the base level. This is the people who are typically approving budgets and things like that are going to it. So how we write it is we write a really quick overview to bring to the executive people, and then we write a more advanced one to go to the people who are technical or the people who are working, and then or even to the more technical people. And so when we write it out, we find a vulnerability and we say this is our level. It's a high vulnerability. This is what happened. This is how we exploited it, and this is why people would want to exploit it. And this is like the risk in threat modeling comes in. So we're talking like that merge of blue and red again, where it's like, okay, maybe your company isn't vulnerable to this type of attack, but a lot of companies are. So maybe this is something to keep an eye on, but maybe not worth the budget right now. So
Or maybe even worse, and this is like a topic lately with like solar winds and Kaseya, like maybe a third party that you rely on is vulnerable to it, so you could be ingesting the vulnerability without even realizing it, which is like
yeah, and that's a lot of people do. And I mean, the first test I went on, it was just littered with Apache default credentials. And if you're in no hacking, you know that this is candy, like just a candy store for us. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, I will Tomcat secret you over and over to death. Like, do not make me do this. But yeah, it's so just trying to explain and educate to people who it seems nonsensical. Like I said, my wife is a software developer and they use, servers like that all the time, and they just pop that stuff in there. And I showed her just hacking a simple one how easy it could be to get into it. And she was like, I never thought about that when I enter that command and hit enter. And I'm like, well, for the company you work for, you're probably fine because like they have cybersecurity people built in. I was like, so you don't have to worry about it, but it is just that easy.
Yeah, the her comment on I would have thought about that. I mean, that's one of those things that same here. Like I'll learn something new, and I'm like, I never would have guessed that would have been a thing that would work. It's
You're
kind
like,
of
wait, what?
yeah. Oh no, that's not good.
This is easier than it should be. This is very concerning.
Very very bad. So I kind of want to jump back a little bit to, and I'll probably edit this back over where we talked about it. Was whenever you were applying to jobs and jumping over from from sales to the boot camp, and then from the boot camp to the pen testing role. Um, how important was just not only persistence, but just like mental grit and emotional grit pushing through that process? Because, I mean, like you said, you applied to over 300 positions. Like you said, 15, 16 responded back. A lot of a lot of denial that I'm sure probably didn't feel good, but ultimately it obviously it paid off. So, how important were those traits to getting you to this position today?
They were everything, and then just acknowledging that applying for a job and doing a career transition like this has it's a full-time job in and of itself. But what had happened for me is that I had spent so much of my time grinding it, sending in these applications and reading every single word for the first 20 of them. And then it got to the point where I realized that the computer was probably going to beat me anyways and wash me out if they didn't like my resume. So that's when I changed to the mentality of just look at the requirements for the position and can you talk about it? Because for me to sit there and to go through every single thing where and everyone in this industry knows people who know what we're doing are not writing these job descriptions. Like an entry level job is just not going to have a CISSP. Like these are just not reality. Um, so like to see that is just disheartening and crushing. And like I had started my boot camp in October, finished it up in February, and it was just beating my butt over and over, reading these things and like going through it. I'm like, I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. So that's why I took a step back, looked at what I needed for my mentality, and then I thought, let's brute force this. let's just throw it in there. And I think that the boot camp style of education and that career transition in and of itself, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you are putting in all of your energy into things that you're going to fail, that's not going to be successful. But if you put in a percentage of your energy understanding you can talk about it and then worry about it once they respond in the positive, that's a little bit more better use of your energy. And like in what I've experienced with other people who are getting into hacking, I watch people zero in on these machines and just life suck themselves away in them. And it's like, this is good. That's a good mentality, but it's not productive. So we have to like hack our own thinking. We have to hack our own behavior and find a way to do it in a way that's productive and healthy for us. And that's what I did. So.
And it kind of also sounds like it's just the strategic application of attention, not only like mental attention, but like emotional attention to, like I really want this job, but if it just doesn't happen, that's cool. We're moving on. As opposed to like if it doesn't happen, then it's over.
Might as well just crawl into my bed and die. Yeah, no, like that. And my thought too is I'm applying to 300 roles right now. I will probably reapply in the future to some of them, right? So like if I'm told no 100 times right now, give it 2 years, give it 3 years, and maybe I'm ready to do a career transition. Well, the person who applied now isn't the person who's going to apply then. Now I'm going to go through different filters, and so except that for your first role, you just need that one person. That's it. One person who sees that spark in your eye or that grit or that smile that like is infectious, or that laugh that just you're proud of what you're doing. And like, there's like little things where people show their passion. That's, they look for that, they find it, and they're like, ooh, I can see a future with this one, and that's all it takes.
And I mean, after that first position, you're kind of doubling up both on the experience factor, which is critical to getting that second position or whatever, moving up the chain, but also most companies will help you train further, get more certifications, which that's something that you can use as well. So, I mean, I guess you said you already got the Security Plus as well, right? So, you know, earlier you were, you're I mean, now you're coming in, with the Security Plus and the OSCP as well.
I
You know,
will.
you'll be
I will.
away. At the very least, real world experience, which is unmatched. I mean, it really the OSCP is designed to mimic the real world, and you got the real world experience. So that's a solid.
Yeah, I think the OSCP is a little bit disconnected from the real world. I personally, I want to just like plug the ever loving God out of the PNPT. Like, I want that certification to come in and destroy this industry so much, because like that makes more sense. Like, let's show what a real pen test looks like, because even me studying for the OSCP and working in it, I see the disconnect between, we don't always have to do things the hard way. It doesn't make you less of a hacker to spin up Metasploit. It doesn't make you less of a hacker to find easier ways. The essence of being a hacker is finding a way in. It's not finding a way in through chisel and some, instead of sledgehammer, So I would love to see, Heath Adams' course and certification just take off. And I think it will, but we obviously have to wait, and we'll get there. I believe in it. But that's the one that I want to try also. Obviously I need to focus on the OSCP because that's what the work says. And if they pay me, I do what they tell me. So we do that, but I'll check that out. But I'm also, have gotten the privilege of being admitted into the the SANS Women Immersive Academy. So I'm going to get some of those certifications, because those are ridiculously expensive, and I would never, ever in my real life get those had I not been admitted. But I'm going to, continue growing, and then eventually, hopefully, I get to be the type of name that's like, oh, I know that this person is good in this industry, and that she cares, and that she's passionate.
Well, I think you can definitely see that for sure. I mean, that doesn't seem to me, at least, to be much of a disputable fact for sure. But and I'm glad that you brought up the PNPT, because I mean that was something I was thinking about and wanting to kind of get your thoughts on. I know that there's a lot of Heath Adams is an awesome follow on Twitter. He's very direct about his thoughts, and the OSCP. I think he's the kind of guy that he's the contender. He's the guy that will bring it. Uh,
Yeah.
have you talked at all with your supervisor, anybody, on their thoughts on the PNPT, and where other offensive security professionals are thinking on that, or if that's even like gotten on their radar yet?
It hasn't gotten on their radar, but it's getting on their radar because I'm putting it there. But I have to do it in like a really strategic way, because I don't want it to come off like I'm afraid of the OSCP, which like partially I'm afraid of all certifications. Let's be real, like, because it's just a stressful thing. But I'm trying to get it on their radar. But right now, what's marketable is the OSCP, and that's like, I appreciate and respect, like, just for the record, OffSec is run by a female CEO who's just bad in like all the good ways, not like bad as an evil, but like she's just tough and she's good. And most of us have some complaints about the financial model and like the try harder mentality, which I also do. But overall, it's our standard. When you see somebody with that, you're like, that person knows what they're doing. Well, I think that the PNPT could be there. I think that when you look at blogs and you look at people saying, oh, I passed the OSCP, or how did you pass the OSCP? The CyberMentor is almost always brought up. Like, so he is the competitor, and I think he will continue to be the competitor. And I think he'll get there. And the more jobs that put it on there, the more we disrupt this industry. And that's what the industry needs is disruption. So one of my biggest problems with seeing the industry coming in, I have been privileged to come out of a not so great situation. I grew up with very little money. I grew up in a not healthy world. So I got really lucky as an adult to just walk out of that, and I have privilege now that I never ever thought I would have. But if you ask me if I could pay $300 for a certification, or $1,000 or $8,000 certification 4 years ago, I'd be like, have you lost your mind? I need to pay for food. Like, we're gatekeeping a little bit. These certifications gatekeep a socioeconomic class that is not what most of us are. So we're keeping poor people from becoming not poor by making these certifications that are $1,000 and $8,000, and CompTIA, those are around $400. I know they all have discounts and stuff, but we could be doing better as an industry, choosing to help more people and get into it. Like, the poor will always stay the poor unless they're given an opportunity to not be. And right now, how the cyber industry is that you need to be a certain class to afford these, or you need to be accepted into a program that will give you a scholarship and stuff. But someone like Heath Adams creating a certification where you can learn it for $30, you can start learning it for $30. Like, that is, almost everyone can find a way to do that. And he's constantly running these specials. It's just, he's making it more accessible, and I want to see that in the industry, which is why I even bring it up and care as much about it. You'll probably find me on his Twitter feed just talking straight trash about people all the time, because I hate these companies that charge so much for this, because I want to see everyone get in.
On that note, just have you heard of any like scholarship programs that will kind of help bring people maybe that financially can't have these opportunities, or can't pay for like a $400 Security Plus certification, or however much that is, just to kind of give them the resources to steady up on the material and give them that opportunity in InfoSec?
I think that if we're looking at studying up, there's a ton of different opportunities. There's very little that we can do to get past the actual companies, OffSec, CompTIA, all of them that have like their price point. But we do have people like Heath Adams with $30 courses. We have people who are genius people teaching on Udemy. Twitter in and of itself is full of good content. Look at your channel. Your channel is full of opportunity to learn and to be guided in the right direction. Like, these are all free resources. And then we have things like Humble Bundle. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but you can get study guides for these certifications on there, and maybe they're the outdated ones, but you get a big chunk of it and you fill it in. So there's that. And then something like SANS, they offer the Diversity Academy and they offer the Women's Academy. And so that doesn't cover everybody, but it's an opportunity for those of us who are underrepresented to get our foot in the door, which is great. And then Full Stack Academy had actually been doing an opportunity grant after this last year with everything that was happening with race relations. They had created an opportunity grant for African American people to get involved. So a lot of these companies, they do have things like that, whether you fall within those categories, but like, look at your veteran benefits, look at your things like that. But there's also schools like WGU is a great example, where it's not horribly expensive. You can use financial aid and you can rack up those certifications if that's what your situation can handle. So it's just a matter of finding it. But I would say go to Twitter and look for people helping, because there's no absence of people on Twitter in this industry who want to help.
I know I mention a lot to my friends that Twitter is an awesome resource.
It
And I
is.
really think it gets slept on. Yeah, I don't really know why. I guess I kind of know why, just because there's a stigma to any social media, and of all of them, Twitter, because just things happen on Twitter. But especially, well, and I guess the cybersecurity community is no exception. Things happen in the cybersecurity
Oh,
community on
no.
Twitter. but who are you know, who are some awesome people that you would recommend people follow, excluding me because I don't count. I'm not a good follow. I know we've mentioned Heath Adams. Who are some other people that you follow and really recommend?
Oh my goodness, the big ones, of course. Alyssa Miller, Ian Coldwater, Rachel Toback, which is like, I like fangirl over her because she's a Pittsburgh girl and I used to be a Pittsburgh girl. just I went on Twitter and I typed in infosec and I typed in cybersecurity, I typed in pen testing. You are a great follow. You're super interactive. Makeshift is a great follow. He just reached out to me and just started like just dragging me into stuff, not in a negative way, but like was just so polite and opening to me the other day. I thought that was amazing. I'm doing a lot of like discords based off of the Twitters that I find. And then like companies, like organizations like Hacking is Not a Crime, go on there, you follow a bunch of those people. Those are all great hackers. Those are all really decent people. And just like my soapbox about Twitter, and I go on this soapbox for people all the time, is you make your timeline what you want your timeline to be. Like, yes, there are instances which we've seen probably not long ago that you cannot avoid it. But overall, you can. If you follow a bunch of people who are going to act like jerks on Twitter, your timeline's going to be toxic. But if you follow people like yourself and you follow Heath Adams and you follow Alyssa Miller and Ian Coldwater and all of those people, you're going to get some good content, intelligent thinking, silliness, which is like the best part, but you're going to get some genuine people. So you you own your own Twitter timeline. If it's starting to be toxic, you're doing some toxic crap. You need to clean yourself out.
Absolutely. I agree 1000%. Um, so I guess we'll kind of wind up here. But prior to hitting up just back on social media and where people can find you if they would like to, what are some ways that, that you like to avoid burnout and that you like to just kind of keep refreshing yourself?
That's a very good question. I am suffering from just about the worst case of burnout you could possibly think of right now. I've been going since October and have not stopped. So I am very, very, very guilty of it. But I'm trying to step back, trying to make sure I'm walking away from the computer, trying to be healthy, trying to do the running, working out, misery, but spending time with my wife, playing with my dog. I've been playing Apex Legends a lot, which I feel like is really weird, a lot more than I should be. But gaming, doing something that like just takes your brain completely out of it. And the most frustrating part of all of that is that often I'm trying not to think about the problem that I'm working on, and then we'll get it. And I'm like, oh my God. And I have to stop everything and run over and do it. So, like, I'm the worst case of burnout you can see. I'm telling you, like, I'm trying really hard to take a step back and network and be a part of the community, because you can be helpful that way. So you don't have to disconnect, but can still connect at the same sort of time. But just try to do things for yourself. Get out of your apartment and your house. I like find myself in this little area all the time, like thinking about this, and need to just not.
I feel that for sure. And especially with COVID, it's, at least the lockdown, it was kind of hard. And I know it, for a lot of people watching, it would depend on where they're living and how bad COVID is, and if they're in another lockdown or not. Hopefully not. But yeah, this is just one of those seasons that it can be more easy than ever to just lean into work and lean into stuff that will burn you out really quickly, and then just crash hard. So
Yeah.
that's good that you're kind of starting to implement some practices to kind of avoid that.
At least I've identified it. We're going in the right direction. Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
any step is a good step, right?
Yeah, really. And it's so hard not to, because you, like, I have stepped away from a lot of social media just because of the world and how people share information. But I've stayed on my Twitter, and most of the time I'm on my Twitter, I'm trying not to think about cyber stuff. But then somebody like you posts a really good video, and then I said I watch video, or somebody else says something, and then I'm like, oh my God, is this the thing? So it's really easy to be like dragged into this like cycle of being obsessed with this field, because it's easy to be obsessed with. um and it's just so cool, it really is. So like you have to avoid it, but at the same time, just admitting where you're at is a good point to start.
I know for me, like I'll have like my personal Twitter, and it's like I don't think I follow any cybersecurity people on it. I do follow like a lot of like news stuff, so it's not necessarily wholesome, but it is a whole lot of like Kansas City Chiefs people. So that's nice,
Yeah, there you go, do something like that. That's what I've been like. I'll get into shows and I'll go on like a tirade of watching, like looking up that hashtag, and I'm like, oh, that's a spoiler or whatever, just something that just takes your mind off of it. But I'm like, just that personality, and you find it in this industry all the time, where it's like you dive head first into it. So like I watched The Handmaid's Tale all in one weekend. Like, do not do that. Like, mental health wise, do not do that. But things like that, like I just dive head first, and that's just who I am. So
I really wish I could remember the name of the show. I watched one show like all the way through that was like, maybe it wasn't Chernobyl. It was something like Chernobyl. I don't know if you've seen that on HBO. It is it's not one that you walk away feeling warm fuzzies.
You do not.
It makes you think it's radiation and you panic, right?
You're like, if you bring joy from this, you need to go to a doctor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it was like right around the time that like I had something like kind of that was bringing a lot of stress to me going on, and I watched that show and I was just kind of like, that was a mistake. That was.
Do not binge Mr. Robot after you watch and you've just been hacking for 5 hours straight without a break. Like, do not do it. Yeah.
Dang it. I love Mr. Robot.
I do too.
Well,
So much.
On that note, is there anywhere that, people can follow you?
Yeah, I my Twitter is just CyRose. The rose is a 0. They can DM me, message me, talk to me about my Boston Terrier, talk to me about Handmaid's Tale, Mr. Robot, whatever, or ask me questions about being pen tester. I am very, very, very happy to share my journey with everybody and help them the best way that I can. But if you come into my DMs and you say, how did you get a pen testing role? What? Then we're not going to talk. Like, I've had quite a few. It really doesn't help with the imposter syndrome when somebody's like, so what do you mean you have this role? That's crazy. So,
hey, earned it.
I found a way to get in. You do the same. Get out of here.
It's the OSCP mantra. Try harder.
Try harder. I don't know if you noticed, but I just died inside a little bit.
Huge thank you again to CyRose for joining the channel and for being willing to sit down and give her thoughts. She's really killing it out there. I really appreciate her time, and I hope that we're all able to really come away from this interview with some awesome feedback. So if this video was helpful, like, follow, subscribe. We'll see you next time.